I would want somebody to walk away with, don't be discouraged. Take the small step daily and watch God expand it.
Welcome to Real Faith, Real World, where we connect the faith within us with the world around us. This podcast is a resource of World Methodist Evangelism, where we connect, equip, and encourage networks of Christian leaders to build faith-sharing movements around the world. My name is Rob Haynes. Thank you for listening, and thank you to the generosity of Christ Church Memphis for their ongoing support of this podcast. We are in the middle of a series called Innovating Church, and today we look at adding digital campuses. My guest is the Reverend Coloma Smith. He is the pastor of the University AMEZ Church in Palo Alto, California. Coloma was on with us about a year and a half ago and talked to us about diversifying his congregation there in California. Well, what happened to him in the pandemic is something that few could expect. Not only did people not come to church anymore because of the COVID restrictions, but many of them moved out of the community altogether. His church faced a unique problem, and they answered it by building out a digital community, not just offering streaming services or even Bible studies, but truly building community as they added a digital campus. Coloma, welcome back to Real Faith, Real World.
Well, thank you for having me again. A lot has changed in the world in the last year and a half.
Indeed, yes. It was about a year and a half ago that you were on the episode with us when you were talking about revitalizing church and making it more representative of all of God's kingdom by increasing the ethnic representation in the church so that it better reflected the community. So that we can just kind of get caught up on that a little bit. Just give us a brief rundown of who you are. Introduce yourself to our listeners.
My name is Coloma Smith. I pastor the University AME Zion Church. It is one of the real joys of my life. I have been the pastor there. How long have I been there? It'll be 9 years this August. And, it's getting better and better. I started with 17 70-year-olds. We grew into a very vibrant, young adult focused congregation. And then COVID happened and life changed. And we've had to make some adjustments. And, it's very interesting how even with a lot of the things we had done ahead of time, how much COVID impacted us.
Yeah. You do a great job in that previous episode on diversifying your congregation and talking about how you walk the streets of your community of Palo Alto, and you got to know folks in, outside of the normal church circles and invited them in. And so you had this really growing and doing a lot of dynamic things, this congregation doing those things. And then the pandemic hit. So it all affected us, but how did it affect University AMEZ?
So, we are in Silicon Valley, where the cost of living is extremely high, and a significant percentage of our companies and schools, that including Stanford, were among the first in the country to say that remote work was a thing. Okay. So we even had the concept of remote work being a thing, or only going into the office 3 days out of 5 days. It was a thing here. And then COVID happened and people shut down. We shut down early. We had some of the strictest COVID protocols throughout the entire pandemic. Matter of fact, some businesses like Google and Facebook are not back in their offices as of yet.
Yeah, that's right.
So people that had moved here for tech and career started saying to themselves, and this is a lot of people, they were like, okay, it's super expensive. I'm not going into office. I can't enjoy the California outdoors. I have a 1-bedroom apartment that I'm spending $4,000 a month on. And I have 2 kids. I need to realign myself, get back to parents. So we had a lot of people move to Austin and North Carolina and Chicago and DC and Baltimore. When I said we had the great migration out the door, because these people, even if they got downgraded in salary because of where they live,
right.
they were still making so much more than that. They were like, it makes sense. I can buy a house. Okay. I could do this and that, and they could do great. I have a house in Austin that I have to go visit to bless. The family bought it. I went to North Carolina and blessed somebody else's housewarming.
Oh, wow.
You know, like this was a thing. So, yeah. And just for your audience to understand, Palo Alto is like the seventh most affluent community in the country. So, average new house price for 1,800 square foot starter home is $1.5 million.
Oh wow!
Average monthly rent for a 2-bedroom is $4,000.
Oh my goodness!
So it's expensive, and these people make a lot of money in tech, but they were like, "We got to go. We got to go." So we ended up losing a significant portion of our community. They weren't physically in our space anymore.
So how did the church leadership respond to this exodus of the congregation?
Well, the exodus wasn't the first thing that hit us. We had a moment in, let's say, COVID started in February, March. By September, and we were fortunate, we were receiving 80% of our giving online before COVID.
Okay.
We had a sanctuary with, 4K cameras and full lighting and background and all of that preset. We were already doing digital Zoom. We were doing Zoom Bible studies because of the travel schedule. So we had a lot of programs and pieces in place. But what I realized, and when I brought back to my leadership, was we weren't cohesively building community with it. We had a lot of the pieces, but there was no community. There was no belonging to. It was very static. It was an event. It was all event based. And I felt myself drifting away from my congregation because I was seeing him in spots. But, one of the pastors around here said it best. He said, in the digital space, there was no bumping into people in the narthex or in the courtyard or outside. There was nothing. And we were like, wow. So we went back and we did a lot of thinking about it. And we came up with this digital campus. Nora Jones wrote a book about it, but we modified it. And that's how we said, okay, this is the place we're going to build community, which is our digital campus, which is great because Kim does her prayer. She puts it up there. We love it. Yeah. And that was a place we started building community. But then we started really looking at it. We realized that some of the people that were watching us and engaged with us were no longer here.
Okay.
So before we even got back and realized everybody left, because we started asking the question about community and how do we make community real in a digital space, we started to realize that people weren't here. They were like, wow. So we knew, because you hear this one texts you, this one calls you, this one says, I'm going to, but it was COVID. So nobody's like keeping track in the office. Like, okay, Tommy left, and we don't. And it's not like you had the visual, like I go out and preach and there's, I had 100 people and now I only have 40 people. So we get to this point, we do this digital campus and we start to realize that there's a significant amount of our people that have left. So what we did was went through our members list, went through our regular attenders list. And we even went back and went 24 months back. And even the people that have moved in the last 24 months, we invited them to be part of our digital campus. I reached out personal text, I checked in on them. And I brought them back into the fold. And that was a big boon to us because they started engaging. They were part of digital campus. They started taking, or Bible study on Zoom increased. All of these other things started increasing, or Sunday viewership or giving, because we given these places. And the digital campus, I will say out of every 10 posts, 3 are jokey jokes like, who do you like grits with sugar or butter, salt, and pepper, like what got apple. If you got to leave a dessert, do you leave the peach cobbler, the apple pie?
Right.
Like that kind of, or who's your favorite? Like and then there's some other stuff where we get really serious and ask questions and they watch movies together and have discussions. But we created a great community space. So it was beautiful there.
So now that's huge because you're not just talking about offering a really great stream of your sermon or a Bible study, but building community is a whole nother level. And you referenced Nora Jones' book, and that's really what she advocates for is that community is where you move from just a digital presence to actually a digital ministry. So how do you manage that? That's really tough to do.
So I don't manage it.
Well, the editorial how do you do that?
I don't manage it. Well, the first thing is that don't let the pastor touch it because they don't get it right. And it sounds like a joke, but it's the truth. So I have one of my associate ministers. That's all she does. It's as if it's campus number 2 for university. We fund it, we support it, we do everything that they need, we do it. She has so we have a campus pastor and a campus director.
Okay.
And the campus director is Sister Lori, and Sister Lori is the one that does the cute stuff and the have conversations. Like,
gotcha.
Today she put up something where she has 2 vacuum cleaners, one that has the cord neatly wrapped, and then another one with the cord in a bunch. And she goes, "Which one are you, A or B?" And I respond, "I'm B." I have the messy cords, but she's got like 15 responses in like 30 minutes on it. But you know what it does? It makes people come back to it. So Then they see the message before about a Sabbath piece, and then they see the financial planning class we're doing tomorrow night. So we have enough of it and it's holistic. So right now we're doing some financial planning classes. So we started from, basic savings the week before it was investments. This week is NFT and crypto, it's a space where we're giving this really holistic thing. Yeah. I hope that answered the question.
No, it does. So you're saying it's not just Sunday morning or Wednesday night or whatever your normal rhythm may be of a in-person sort of service. There's that extra step where maybe you would kind of bump into somebody in the narthex sort of thing. You've got to recreate that space.
Yes, we and we do a lot of live streaming into it. Yeah. And it's not really hard, right? So, for example, me and Reverend Tahina, we do a thing called Monday Musings.
Okay.
Where we talk to each other about Sunday sermons on Monday evenings at 7.
And then
congregation can ask questions in the chat. We use StreamYard, so the chat shows up. So the congregation can ask any question they want or feedback or look at it later. And it's amazing. Like there's some weeks we'll do it and it's only 1 person or 2 people watching, and we'll go 4 weeks later and then there's 40 people that have watched it. So, we don't get discouraged on the actual live numbers, or we don't get caught up on the live numbers. We're building content that people can go back and look at.
I think that's really important because sometimes we get a little discouraged if we're pushing out something live and, we don't have thousands of people on there. But what you're saying is it's there and people can go back and access it later. And then your reach is much greater.
Yep. And it's a private group. So we have 200 people in it now. Then the other side that we do that's really important is Bible study is a Zoom. So people that want to participate and have interchange can call on the Zoom. But like the mothers that got to put kids away or the people that aren't in our time zone or that stuff, they can watch that recording of that Zoom on Tuesday night. And then on, we do a devotional call at 6:30 on Wednesday morning, and we upload the audio for the devotional call onto our Facebook page. And then on Friday, we have a prayer moment where the people can put in a prayer request, and Reverend Tahina at 5 p.m. every Friday does this meditative prayer moment where she lifts up the people's requests. And then we have Sunday service. So it's a lot.
Yeah.
But most of it although we have a full 4K studio camera setup, 90% of our content is created with a webcam.
Oh, wow. That's important to know. You don't have to have a huge studio set up. You can start with what you got.
This background that you're watching right now
Yeah.
is where except for Sunday sermons and special recordings, 98% of our stuff is made in this way, just like this.
And for the benefit of those who can't see you, it looks like you're probably in your den or something like that. And
your living room.
Yeah, just in your living room. I mean, and it looks great. It's beautiful, but it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to look like a television studio or a church. No,
you don't need a home. It's just a webcam.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so Coloma, I'm just going to kind of maybe do some thinking through this a little bit. One of the things that I've heard folks say is in terms of this digital campus, and let's think about folks that have moved from your community and they're across the country now, like you said. How do you do pastoral care in that way? So somebody has a tragedy in the family or is in the hospital. How do you care for them when you're thousands of miles away?
So we have a couple of different things. So we went through the digital campus and we realized we were engaging people, but we weren't doing some personal stuff with it. So we have a text, we have every service in the book: mail, email, text, whatever.
Right.
So we actually have a matrix of our people, and like we know who we can text to, and we'll send group text, and I'll send individual text to people. So they're getting that away from the computer, soft touch.
Right.
So when something does happen, they have my number, they have Reverend Tahina's number, they have the church text number. There is another path of connection besides going to the Facebook group. It's easy to manage now. It's only 200 people, but it's the way that we do it. I mean, we had one member that moved to Philadelphia, was having some significant family issues on Christmas morning, and text me, "Can you talk?" And I'm like, "Yes, let's talk."
Right.
And called the person up, had a conversation, prayed with them. And that's actually more pastoral than I would in person, because I wouldn't know this till Sunday morning, right?
Yeah. So would there ever be an occasion where maybe you would even reach out to another pastor in that community if they had to have a face-to-face visit or something like that?
I think no.
Okay.
I haven't reached there yet. There's a lot of, we could do one-on-ones with Zoom. There's a lot of talking. There's a lot of built-in relationship that's there. So I think that's, where we are. I am dealing and battling with the concept of digital membership.
Oh, go on with that. That's interesting.
Because we have people that give to our community, do our discipleship, but how do we do digital membership? And there's a couple components to that. There's not only the financial and the attendance but there's discipleship, volunteering, community. And before I say somebody's a member, I want to make sure we can provide that well. Right. So we're working on non-digital ways to reach digital members. And what does that look like? Like we want to, like we're talking about maybe mailing daily breads to them once a quarter, or, how do we get people? We have a lot of people in Austin, a lot of people in the Raleigh, North Carolina area, a couple of people in the Baltimore area. How do we put them in pods together? So we're trying to really think about that because like you said, I think people enjoy the worship experience, enjoy the fact they have a really close connection with the pastor. But you need to have something local. So we're trying to figure out how to make these local expressions work the best.
Right. So what percentage would you say of those who participate in the digital campus are still around Palo Alto, and how many are scattered like you talked about in these other places?
I would say 50-50.
Oh, all right. That's a big number.
Yeah. And the interesting part is we have another thing where a lot of the people that are new to our physical campus haven't joined our digital campus yet.
Interesting.
Yeah, the digital campus is for legacy and online people. And a lot of people saw a couple of sermons, watched a couple of things. I get the reports every month. And it's interesting. Like the other day, I saw like 4 people join the digital campus after they joined the church in person.
Okay. So would you say that most people are coming, into the proverbial front door of the church in person or in the digital campus?
I will say they're seeing us in social media, and then they watch our service, but they don't go as deep as our digital campus as the front door.
Okay.
That will come to the church as a front door.
Yeah.
I would say more of our front doors, our website or the sermon clips, the videos, that kind of stuff is our front door.
Yeah. I think that's really important to mention because some people in more of a legacy church knew that you would buy an ad in the newspaper or the yellow pages or something like that. And that's how people discovered you. But we need to realize that people of all ages are going to find the church through the website, through Facebook, through something like this. That is the front door. And they're going to make assessments and judgments about your church before they ever walk in by what they see in that digital presence.
Yeah. And as I was sharing with you earlier, one of the things we made a conscious decision on was we really wanted people from our community. We didn't want Christians.
Mm-hmm.
We wanted people from our community.
I love it.
So our advertising and marketing is not demographically based in the sense it's not like I'm not looking because we're a Black church. I'm not looking for Black folks. It's not because we're a young adult church, like none of that. We are looking for people within 15 to 20 miles with our advertising. And what we found is that we attract people with the reach and advertising. And it's all by the geography or the zip code around us. It's not like I'm saying I want people that watch all Christian content and that's who we're going to market to. Because, Facebook, they have some analytics where at least they used to, but they could see, what you watched and what you saw in there and what you like.
Right.
And we just want 18 to 65 in 15 miles. And they're like, and, it's worked for us. We did, we do the right hand of fellowship for people that are joined, already baptized, XYZ, that kind of stuff. And we did one in December. It was probably 10 people in the front of the church. And the youngest was a 5-year-old child from Ethiopia. And the oldest was an 82-year-old British woman that hadn't been in church, in a Methodist church since she was 16.
Wow. I love it. And it's important to note that those Facebook ads are pretty inexpensive. You can get a lot of bang for your buck with those because it will help you target, like you said, to the geographic area and something like that. But if someone's listening today and said, look, Reverend Coloma, I get what you're saying, but I don't live in a high-tech community where people accept that. I'm not even in a city. I don't have these fancy cameras. I'm in rural, Mississippi or Georgia or Iowa. I mean, can you talk to them a little bit? How do they get started when they're trying to help do these things you're talking about?
Well, I would say this. We live in a culture where the majority of people have a phone with a touch screen.
That's true.
It might not be an iPhone.
Yeah.
And I visited my father-in-law in Raleigh, North Carolina, and he went to Walmart and got for $50 or $60 a touchscreen Android phone, and we can do all this. He could do almost all the stuff I do with my $1,000 iPhone. So everybody has one of those, right?
Right.
So the question I ask people is, how do people find your church? And I think what most pastors will say is, I don't know. Now, this is the thing. When you ask people to see how they find stuff, the question becomes, well, I Google it or I search it or I do whatever. So I would tell people, go to your Google Places listing. You can just go to Google Business, put in your address and put your listing in. Go to Yelp, do the same thing. Make sure the names are the same.
Okay.
And go to Microsoft and do the same thing. And what that will allow, you will now be in the directory. So somebody says, starts typing church near me, your church will show up.
Yeah.
And I think it is actually more incumbent on rural churches to do at least that basic thing, because I've got a couple thousand cars driving by my church a day.
Okay.
So if I put a sign outside and make sure it has nice lights and stuff, I'll attract somebody to the building just because of location. If you are on the back of Ipswich Road in the back corner and only get 10 cars that drive by day, you better be searchable.
Right.
Like you don't have a choice. And this is the thing. We live in a post-Christian United States.
Yeah.
Most people that say they believe in Jesus Christ, it's a nominal belief. It's a nominal belief. That means there isn't church home discipleship connectivity in that, even in rural areas.
Yeah.
So when they say church near me, and they have a need, you want to be the church that at least shows up in that conversation.
That's great. Well, Coloma, if someone would just say, I'm not a pastor, I'm not on church staff, but I really know that these things are important. How can I get my pastor? How can I get the leadership to support these things? But I don't have the power of the pulpit, if you will.
One of the things that I learned early on is there's a few things. Take people for where they are as far as your local internal congregation. I would say work on more of talking about love and accepting people as you plant the seeds for more people to come to the building.
Right.
There are certain things you're going to share with the pastor and say, okay, I know we don't have any money, but this is free.
Yeah.
And this is a passive way that over the next year, we're going to see some level of visitors. Like I would say about 5 to 10% of my visitors come from people searching for us. And that's a basic. We spend a lot of money for advertising, marketing, but so we see in a year, maybe 200, 250 guests. I mean, I'm pretty sure there's some churches, if they saw 25 brand new guests this year, they would just be through the roof, happy.
Yeah.
And say, okay, I'm going to focus you, pastor, if you can just make sure the soil is soft, we will get some level of visitors from doing this.
Yeah.
Because one of the things I think sometimes we make these big pronouncements from the pulpit, and it makes people edgy. It makes people uncomfortable. It makes people on guard.
Right.
It makes people defensive. But if you say stuff like to leadership, let's make sure the ground is soft for when people show up. And, you spend time with the congregation talking about, what does it look like to receive people? What does it mean to be soft ground? What does it mean to be a place that your kids want to come? We know all the tropes, but work on that. And as people start coming in from, you want to call it passive flow of income or passive flow of visitors, you could start seeing that God will start moving in that space.
Yeah. You talked a lot about the different things that y'all have been doing in the last, say, year and a half. Can you give us a story or two of where you've seen this work, and that's the thing that really energizes you to keep doing it?
Well, I'll say a few things. I was very discouraged in February of last year.
Yeah.
Because I'd realized the full extent of people that had migrated from our area. And, I was like, I don't want to start over again. I mean, I came in 2013 and there were 17 people here.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I was like, we put all this effort, we built this great community, and look at where we are now. Why God, why?
Yeah, right.
So we reopened in June. And the first Sunday, my members come up to 2 or 3 of my senior members come up to me and be like, I don't recognize anybody. And I looked at them and said, I don't recognize anybody either. I don't recognize nobody here.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is why we do church. And that took a few weeks, like, because I had to help my members through a grieving process. Because the church that we left at the beginning of COVID wasn't the church we had when we came back.
Right. Yeah.
So there was who are my friends? Like, it was a grieving process. I also had a grieving process. Because, you build these relationships and now you open back up church and it's a whole new church.
Absolutely.
So there is that, but I thank God, we look up and we like, on any given Sunday, 70% of the room or 80% of the room has attended university less than 9 months.
Oh, wow.
And that's all right. We're excited that God continues to bless us in that way. Number two, so that's the first way, right? Like, okay. God really giving us. Number two, it's like the moments where you are just like blown away. So when I do my new members class, and we do one every other month. So we do a right hand 1 month, and then we do the next month new members class, and we have a constant cycle of people coming in the building. Like, whatever the number is this year, it just keeps every month. It's another 5 to 10 people that are joining and becoming full members and that doesn't include our baptism numbers. Wow. But the way we start our new members class is I tell my story, growing up in New York, leaving the church, coming back to the church, challenges, and just listening to these people's stories about their faith walk. Like, there's tears and there's moments, and it's just amazing to see how God is just working in these people's lives and hearing their stories. It's just like, there is nothing like sitting in a room with 10 people and the level of vulnerability they share in their story. And it's just like, my God, like, people that, it's amazing. Like, people that grew up in the Catholic Church, or people that came through para organizations like InterVarsity and Young Life, but never joined the church, or people that, they joined church and they experienced significant church hurt through scandal. And like, just hearing the stories back and forth, it just blows my mind.
And you have to hear those stories. The only way to hear those stories is you have to be present with them, whether that be face-to-face or in the digital space.
Exactly. And you've got to be willing to listen.
Coloma, I think that's a good place to leave it. If people wanted to get in touch with you or learn more or get some resources, how they could put this in their own congregation, what's the best way to get in touch, or where would you point them?
Digital campus is not our idea. So Nora Jones wrote a great book called Social Media to Social Ministry.
Right.
It
is a great book.
Point.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great starting point. Very practical. Very, very practical. And I think you can't use everything it says, but you can modify it to your context. So I think it's 80% applicable through most contexts. Number two, you could reach out to me. You could just send an email to pastor@universityamez.com. Ask any questions. pastor@universityamez.com. If you want to do a face-to-face, I'll put you in contact with my admin, and she'll set up time for us to talk for a half an hour block, and we can go from there.
That's great. Reverend Coloma, I always appreciate what you do for the broader church, what you do there for University Church, what you do for WME through Order of the Flame, and also for the podcast. We're so grateful for your time, for your expertise, and the way God's gifted you and the way you share it.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks. It is a good time to go ahead and subscribe, because I know you will not want to miss any of these episodes that we have in this Innovating Church series. We have some fascinating conversations coming up as we're looking at different ways that we can help answer the needs of the community with the gospel. Speaking of different ways that we can learn to do that, if you live in Europe, I want to encourage you to visit our website, worldmethodist.org, to learn more about Metanoia Europe 2022. It's going to be the 29th of August through the 4th of September in Durham, England. It's designed for 18 to 35-year-olds who are interested in furthering their ministry. You can visit our website to register or to give your support to others who may want to attend. We'd love to hear your questions, comments, or suggestions for a future episode. You can reach us at podcast@worldmethodist.org. In addition to Coloma's contact information in today's show notes, you'll also find all of our social media connections. Do be sure to connect with us, and my own social media connections are on there as well. Well, thanks again to Christ Church Memphis for sponsoring this episode, and thank you for listening. I'm Rob Haynes, and you've been listening to WME's Real Faith, Real World podcast.